So, updates. The computer is still, it is a brick. I tried turning it on and it will not, so it will officially at least be a investigation cost to check out the laptop. But I wanted to make my SCP 2 through 50 video because I am stubborn and I don't want to be beaten. So, I've got the foundation up on my phone. I'll be editing this in, I think, Windows Movie Maker, going back to basics. And I'll just be reading off uh, first the name of the SCP, and then I'll do the presentation I normally do. I don't know why I'm stalling. I'll just go ahead and get into this. First on the list, we have the living room. It is a flesh sphere that is filled with furniture and other accoutrements. Uh, it was found originally as like a hard-covered meteor that impacted in Portugal, and SCP Foundation found it, and they noticed that the more people that they lose to the inside of this flesh sphere, the more like carpets and lampshades the apartment has. So that's weird. That's really about it. Just a big fleshy sphere. I like it. Next, we have the biological motherboard. It looks like a motherboard component of a computer, except for it's fully biological. It also has a second component to it, which was added on. I'll get to that one in a moment. The biological motherboard, in and of itself, when it first tries to interact with species, it takes a sample of them by absorbing that species, and then tries to recreate its mass into a facsimile of it, and tries to communicate by telling them that it will create a paradise for that species. But its idea of a paradise and our idea of a paradise, probably not the same. And then there is a secondary component that is made of like a runic computer that it emits radiation when it detects that the biological motherboard is starting to grow. It can't fully contain it once it's growing, but it can at least slow it down. And if the biological piece ever stops acquiring new mass, it is able to help keep it in check and return it back down to a appropriate size. The next SCP-004 is the 12 rusty keys and the door. There's a set of keys that, when used on a very specific door, you've got 10 of those keys will scatter your viscera into many different pieces across time, and you have one key that will absorb you into a dimension of madness, and then you've got one key out of the 12 that will transport you to this advanced darkness bunker where it's also time dilated, where you can spend several weeks inside, but it only feels like a couple hours to you, several weeks on the outside. They found this like chest on the inside, and when you use the safe key on it, anything that you put in there, once you close it and lock it, the thing just vanishes, gone forever. Who knows where it went? Foundation doesn't, not yet. Is the skeleton key. It is a key that functions normally as a skeleton key would. The only weird part about it is it can also undo digital locks, and if the user of the key doesn't recognize something as a lock, then the key fails to work on it about half of the time. Now, that's not to say that the key won't work on that lock 50% of the time, but if the user doesn't recognize it, it won't. So, for example, a heavily concealed lock, someone who doesn't know that it isn't a lock uses the key on it, you've got a 50-50 chance of opening it or not. But if you take in the next 100 participants and you all tell them, this is a lock, this key will work on it, all of those next 100 participants will be able to unlock it with the key. So it's not a failure of the key itself, it's the interaction with the user. The Fountain of Youth. It is just a stream in Russia. The Foundation kind of cordons it off by telling people it's industrial waste. It heals humans and other similar, that's a weird word to say. Similar apes and other like monkey type creatures. Doesn't work on birds or birds or lizards, and it completely destroys viruses and bacteria. I don't know how it works with the inner microflora microfauna of the inside of the human body, but it doesn't seem to do any damage. It repairs cell structures that have been damaged over time, and yeah, that's really about it for this one. One Ponce de Leon was way off on location. The Abdominal Planet, there is a man where instead of having an abdomen, has a small planet with two sentient species on it. They have the technology of about 14th century Earth. Just to give an idea, that's cannons and the printing press. So those guys are, we gotta keep our eyes on them. Next part of it, I think, is also that I think that's really it for all the anomalous properties he has. He does also really like chess and is very smart. He's got like a 130 IQ or something, so good for him. The zombie plague, it is just a prion disease. For those who don't know, prion misfolded protein causes mad cow disease, Kuru, Creutzfeldt-Jakob syndrome. Getting off topic. It is a misfolded protein that when it infects a human, causes them to become a zombie. I don't make the rules about horror, but every horror needs some zombie analog. It seems to not be. It's anomalous because it doesn't have any other proteins close to it in a way that if they misfolded would become it. So, and if it did exist, then we would already be in zombie land. Then there's SCP-009, Red Ice. It is inverse water above 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. It is solid below 0 degrees Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit to negative 100 degrees Celsius, and doing this math on the fly, 148 degrees Fahrenheit. I've got my conversions right on that. I do. Then it becomes a liquid in between those temperatures, and from negative 100 degrees Celsius and negative 148 degrees Fahrenheit and below, it is in a gas state. It reminds me of Ice 9 from Cat's Cradle. The collars of control, they are just like iron collars that allow you to control somebody. They are mostly replicatable, but there are some function critical non-replicatable pieces that if you transfer them into a different collar will actually still work. There's also a remote control that if you know what you're doing, you can rewrite the biological structure of the thing you're controlling. So that's terrible. Next is a sentient Civil War statue in the United States. It slowly developed sentience over the course of a few years, and the Foundation started taking notice of it when it would slightly move, and really started taking notice of it when it would shoot birds that shit on it. After that, it interacted with some person on the street where they were like, "How are you doing?" And he was like, "I'm doing all right, I guess." And they were like, "What the?" So the Foundation took notice of it and put it into containment. Turns out he's really smart too, like another 130 IQ kind of guy. SCP-12 is a bad composition. It is a piece of paper which I have a theory is actually just human skin with human blood on it. Anybody who sees it is compelled to find blood by any means necessary and begin to write, complete the music composition. But everybody who tries to attempt to do so states that it cannot be done. It is a terrible piece of music and it should never be finished. To me, it reminds me of a Kidz Bop version of WAP. Now we have SCP-13, Blue Lady cigarettes. It is a set of cigarettes made by this stalker who was obsessed with this woman with dark hair, some dress, and coral blue #2 lipstick. She was... Anybody who smokes one believes that they are the woman that he was thinking about. That's really the end of it. Oh, the effects are permanent, so not even one kid. Next we have the Concrete Man. It is a man who believes that he was cursed to become a concrete statue. Now, he believed this in 1937 and is only looks about 30 years old, so he might be kind of right about this. Now, he could just be an immortal with reality bending powers and is turning him to concrete because he believes it, or he could just be an immortal with fibrodysplasia, ossificans progressiva. Next, we have the Pipe Nightmare. It is a building with a huge pipe structure inside of it. When it's not under observation, the pipe structure just keeps on growing and growing. It has tons of various different pipes, all in different states of use and disuse and disrepairs, from brand new to rusted and spilling out. If you bring tools near it or are mean to the pipes, it spews blood, molten lava, rats, just all sorts of unpleasant things at you until you leave. Now, people also say that they can hear banging and screaming coming from inside the pipes, but this has never been completely verified. There's an innuendo here somewhere, and I just can't find it, and it's starting to make me angry. Next, there is the sentient microorganism SCP-16. It is a sentient microorganism. It infects people, and when they get infected, they start having some amounts of changes. But the really cool part is, if the host is ever in danger, the organism rewrites their biological structure to try and preserve them and help them survive whatever catastrophic situation they found themselves in. The Foundation tested drowning people, and the first time around, they developed oxygen, they developed gills and everything. The next time around, I can't remember what they did, but the third time around, it started developing these two separate sacs where it was separating out the water into hydrogen and oxygen to use as a kind of torch to break out of the containment it was in which case the SCP Foundation promptly dropped it a couple hundred feet to make sure that it died. SCP-17 is a little shadow child. If any shadow cast by a bright light touches it, the shadow immediately tries to engulf the offending thing that cast a shadow on it and envelops it. SCP-18, the Super Ball. It is a very bouncy ball that doubles in height every time it's bounced, with the equivalent energy gain from that. That's really about it. It just reminds me of the scene from MIB where they have the Super Ball and it was a prank by the Great Attractor, and he thought it was funny as hell. SCP-19 is the Monster Pot. It is this Grecian urn that every once in a while, I think once a minute or once an hour, will spit out these little naked mole rat looking monsters that are highly aggressive and will attack on sight. They used to be very flammable, but now they're not, so that's one less way to take them out. Next we have SCP-20, the Unseen Mold. It is a mold that cannot be seen with the naked eye or through a microscope. It can only be seen through pictures and videos, and the photo on the wiki is horrid, and you're gonna find me taking pictures and videos anywhere I go now. First time I walk into a room, I'm taking a picture. It's gross, it's disgusting, it encourages people to keep their houses warm and humid, and once it reaches a critical mass, encourages them to invite friends over so that it can spread spores and spread everywhere, and I just hate it. SCP-21 is a sick dragon tattoo that travels across the body and will eat other tattoos, and if allowed, will transfer from like one person's arm over to another. The only bad side about this SCP is that when it moves, it feels like you're getting the tattoo wherever it's going, and you're also getting tattoo removal from wherever it's leaving. Otherwise, it's just a sick moving dragon tattoo. Makes you more confident, makes you more, I think, pain tolerant. I mean, also a little bit more irritable. Worth it. Sick dragon tattoo. SCP-22, the Morgue, is just a random ass morgue in England where every once in a while the drawers will open and spit out a corpse from other morgues. And when they come out, they kind of shamble around for a little bit. They're not aggressive, but they are just very dazed and confused. If the vocal structure isn't damaged on the reanimated corpse, then it will be able to talk to whoever asks it questions. They sent in a D personnel in to the like little drawers that are found in morgues, and he never came out. And then a couple months later, he's in the body of a little girl, and he goes like, "What the hell did you do to me?" And they were like, "Wait, is this D-class personnel XYZ?" And he's like, "Yeah, guys, it's me. Now, what did you do to my body?" So pull some Freaky Friday shenanigans. So that's fun. SCP-23 is the Black Shuck. It is a folklore figure from, I think I want to say like Irish mythology. It very much is like the Grimm, where it's a black dog that's like an omen of death. Anybody who makes eye contact with it, whenever they break eye contact, exactly 1 year from then, either the person who made eye contact or one of their immediate family members is going to die. When they did an autopsy on them, they just found like ash, like compacted ash in the body cavities of whoever died. So don't make eye contact. SCP-24 is the game show of death. Now, this SCP is fair and honest, and I will not accept any other takes on this. And as soon as you enter in, the host of the game show tells you, "This is dangerous. You could die, but you also could win a prize. Who wants to continue?" If you say yes, you continue on, you play the game, you do all the dangerous stuff. If you cheat, you get booted out of reality. But if you say, "No, I don't want to play a dangerous death game. Can I leave?" He goes, "Yeah, sure. Exit's over there. You can leave. You're not allowed back in." That's the end of it. He's fair and honest. SCP-25, a well-worn wardrobe. It is this uh, closet armoire, one of those two, filled with a multitude of clothes in disrepair. They've got different like cuts and holes all throughout them. Whoever puts it on receives injuries to whatever portion that was damaged on the original article. There was one where it was like little like bite marks all throughout the clothings had been taken out. And a few days later, they were hit with a shotgun blast that only impacted at the spots the clothing was beforehand. For some reason, all I can imagine is just like hipster clothing where it's pretentiously disheveled, even though it ranges from styles from the 1920s and further. Come on. I can't be the only one thinking it. SCP-26, After School Retention. It is an abandoned high school with nerd graffiti teaching like math, science, quantum mechanics. It's also got gang graffiti. Now, that graffiti will shift around, and for a lot of the instructional graffiti, it looks like it was like ink and printed text on books that has spread throughout the entirety of the abandoned facility. Anybody who goes in for too long starts to dream about it and get attracted back into the facility, where they become a number of comatose people inside of it. If people are removed from it, they start to desiccate immediately. SCP-27 is the Vermin God. Anywhere that the host of the SCP goes, rats, spiders, snakes, other such creatures will follow. They can only stay in one place for about 2 minutes before these creatures start appearing out of nowhere. Originally, it was found in a dead husk that was in an abandoned facility surrounded by different nestings of all of these creatures. When the SCP found it, the curse transferred on to one of the Foundation members. When I made the PowerPoint, the only picture I could find to represent this SCP was a Minecraft mod, so I'm really sad about losing that. SCP-28, Knowledge, is a storage facility in Michigan where if you stand in a specific spot for a little bit too long, the entire and complete knowledge of a random topic is beamed directly into your brain. One man got the 1992 phone book of New York City. Another man got the knowledge of how to recycle oxygen in his body so that he didn't need to breathe again. He was executed, and one of the researchers, after finding nothing different in his body, said, "How the hell did he do that?" For me, it just reminds me of going on like a Wikipedia rabbit hole and finding out that platypuses don't have stomachs. CP29, the Daughter of Shadows, is a woman with albinism and melanism. She has this cult dedicated to her that believes she is the incarnation and will bring the end of the Kali Yuga, a time in Hinduistic beliefs where the current age of the world, the Kali Yuga, is marked by war and suffering and strife. They believe that she will bring an end to it. She really likes to kill, preferably by strangulation. When they killed off her cult, she screamed in pain, said, "You're killing my people," and the melanistic portions of her skin that had been growing continuously stopped and have not grown since. SCP-30 is the homunculus. It is this little, like, 2 foot tall gremlin that has large amounts of knowledge of very different and old topics, including alchemy, chemistry, stuff like that. It is bad to introduce him to new knowledge as he tries to recreate it, and he ended up building this UV radiation gun after learning about the piezoelectric effect. So, that's crazy. He can be contained by putting him in a place with no more than 15 lumens of light, but that's only like a 1 watt bulb could generate that amount of light. Also, whatever you do, do not Google homunculus and look at the photos. Terrible. Trust me on this one. Don't do it. Don't do it. Hey, you. Yes, you. What did I just say? SCP-31, What is Love? It is a hotel in North Korea that houses this flesh monster that infects some of the rooms and creates figures of loved ones to anybody who appears next to it to try and entice them to come close to it, where they can absorb them, remove their brain, and bring their brain inside where they still might be conscious in there, as it has a series of what replicates blood vessels that would keep that brain alive. It also is in a time space paradox affair with this other SCP where conflicting reports say that both of them are in this hotel, but anytime any researcher tries to confirm it, they're able to confirm that yes, this person or this series of studies for SCP-31 is in location, and yes, this other SCP is also being studied here. But whenever they try and get the two groups to meet or go from one group to the next, they always just miss it. Some people will say, like, okay, yes, I'm right at entrance number 2, and someone far away has a telescope. It's like, well, we don't see you there. So, SCP-31, some time fuckery, I don't know. SCP-32 Brother's Bride. It is a silicone woman. Not going there, I promise. I thought so too for a moment, but I promise it's not. A silicone woman that has the innate property of destroying anything natural around her, uh, including like bacteria, viruses, animals, trees. The only things not affected are things directly involved with the like betterment of humans, which include like the microfauna. Wasn't gonna make that mistake twice. Microfauna inside of us, the buildings we create, other such things. She says that she is the punishment for her husband. She is a facsimile of his now dead wife, and once he sees her, her existence is going to drive him mad just because she's a mockery of what he once loved. Uh, that guy is another SCP, SCP-1440, I believe, and he has the anomalous property of destroying anything man-made, and he prays for death, but because he won a card game against death years and years ago, he is now cursed with immortality, the anomalous property of destroying anything man-made, and a compulsion to walk the earth, trying to find death again, but all he can ever find are his two brothers. So that's kind of cool. I really like that story. So, hey, bonus SCP. SCP-33, the missing number. A formula proved that there's an integer between unnamed numbers that has been missed by mathematics whenever it is incorporated onto a sheet of paper or other such like device, or not devices, just any writing implement. It starts to degrade the paper into like water and pulp and starts to destroy any regular shaped piece of paper. It could be used as a weapon against machine type SCPs, but if not under proper containment, then it might infect the internet and all computers and destroy all of that infrastructure all at once, which would not be good. It's only contained on like a piece of vellum, which I don't even know what vellum is, so what am I talking about? I don't like it. Math is already hellish enough without trying to tell us that we missed a number and that if we try to bring it back in now, everything's gonna break. Like, wouldn't this just be base 11 instead of the base 10 system we use? Ritual knife. SCP-34 is an obsidian ritual knife. It is an obsidian ritual knife that if you cut pieces of skin off of someone, you are able to transform into that person for a period of time roughly proportional to how much skin you took off. The person you cut has to be alive or else the transformation does not work. If the person is brain dead, then you go unconscious for the transformation, but you come back at the end of whatever time limit the amount of skin you took is. I mean, I feel like it would be a really cool D&D item, like Knife of the Masquerade Priest or something. I want to incorporate that into my games. Now, SCP-35 is the Possessive Mask. It is a mask that transforms between tragedy and comedy, the over-exaggerated frown face and smile that Greek plays used to have to emphasize emotion for the people in the back. It changes which one it is randomly. When I made the PowerPoint for it, it changed in PowerPoint, and that had me fucked up for a moment. Other than that, it generally just entices people to put it on. It says that it can change anybody's mind about any topic given enough time. It is currently in containment, and it is not happy about it. It is making the walls bleed and slowly trying to break down containment. This thing terrified me just for what it did in PowerPoint. SCP-36 is the reincarnation pilgrimage of the Yazidi or the Kiras Gohoran. It is a anomalous event where once a year all of the people of the Yazidi faith who have died in the past year show up to an airport to take a plane ride to this unknown place. When the Foundation tried to find it before the week of the pilgrimage itself, there was nothing. When they tried to put trackers on the camera, it disappeared for a while before cameras picked back up and showed this small airport place. Now, the pilgrimage is taken so that the Yazidi people can continue on in reincarnation, where they change garments, which is what Kiras Kohorin stands for, and it's just an afterlife pilgrimage, which is kind of cool. It led me down learning about the Yazidi people a little bit on Wikipedia, so that was fun. SCP-37 is the dwarf star. It is a star only about 2 inches across. It is going through the life cycle of a star very quickly, and the Foundation is worried that it'll go nova soon. Their plan for that is to take it and push it somewhere else. That's really all the thought they put behind it. SCP-38 is the everything tree. It is a tree that when you push something up against it, as long as it is under 200 pounds, it will grow a replica of it. They tried to recreate it with a SCP type of like pills that instantly cure any disease. It only had like a 30% chance to work, but still better than nothing. One thought I had is, why not just like graft a branch on these into like any public park? boom, instant food everywhere. Or just do it at the facility themselves. I mean, they can literally create anything they want. All of it. All the time. I feel like if the Foundation was a little bit more ready to use anomalous entities, that they could cure a lot of problems. Now we have the proboscis engineers. They are proboscis monkeys that have had their eyes, mouth, and digestive system removed. Uh, they're really good at tinkering and creating, like, manufacturing engines and other mechanical devices like that. They were made by, I think, the Red Troop, which is this group of just certified freaks that also created a plant that grows into a dog or a cat. It's still a plant, so it's still like rooted there, but it just turns into a dog or a cat that's just rooted in place. And they own some property in East Tennessee that everyone thinks that their country owns and is an important site for every country's history if somebody from that country lives there. It's a weird one. SCP-40 is Evolution's child. It is a small girl that has the ability to mold creatures into different forms. She was picked up from this kind of orphanage that the Foundation raided for separate reasons, and they found her. Her jacket is a cat that she changed, which is, needless to say, kind of weird. She also has this like spherical orb creature and a furry quadruped that can climb up walls that she likes to ride on. SCP-41 is a thought broadcasting patient. It is a comatose man who is able to take in and receive, like, transmit and receive the thoughts of anybody within a certain radius around him. He doesn't broadcast his own thoughts too much unless to add like witty comments into other people's conversations. He likes to watch TV through other people's minds to keep him entertained. SCP-42 is a formerly winged horse. It is a horse that has bone protrusions coming out from right about the shoulder blades on the horse, with a lot of atrophied muscles that would have connected to those bone protrusions. It is very sad all the time and refuses to eat or stay standing for long. One doctor at the Foundation tried to abduct it and took it on a plane ride where he went into free fall, but he was overtaken by some of the other staff. They wrestled control of the plane away from him, and it was either to try and crash the plane to put the horse out of its misery or to let it experience flying again. SCP-42 is just a depressed Pegasus that had its wings clipped. SCP-43, the Beetle. Beetle as in the band, not the animal. It is... fucking with me. SCP-43, The Beetle. It is a record of the Beatles' White Album, except for it doesn't have any grooves on it, so it shouldn't be able to play the music, but it does. And when it gets to Revolution 9, it turns into this masculine breathing voice that when you ask it a question, it is able to respond. It has encyclopedic knowledge of band trivia, music theory, music industry. It refuses to answer questions about itself or the Beatles. I don't like it because Revolution number 9 is my favorite part of the Beatles' White Album. Next up is SCP-44, a World War II era fission cannon. It is a cannon that is mounted on like railroads, and it has a compartment where you can put anything, and whatever you put into it, it fires as this red slag of a bullet. Once the slag lands, it is converted into energy. The wiki seems to imply it's at minimum 100% efficiency, And if that's the case, they did a test with it. That was a 9,800 kilogram diesel truck. Now, if my math is right, which I hope it is, let me go ahead and just pull the numbers for you on that. That is 900 quintillion joules of energy. That is 220,000 megatons. That is 4,000 times stronger than the Tsar Bomba. It's insane. It's an insane weapon. SCP-45 is the atmospheric converter. It is a dodecahedron that converts nitrogen, gas, and argon into water and salt respectively. It also turns hydrogen into simple amino acids. This is the thing that created the primordial soup. SCP-46 is the predatory hollybush. The Foundation keeps its true nature a secret, as knowing its true nature is a cognitohazard in and of itself. The cover story for it is that there is a spot in a forest where different plants grow, and if a living creature starts to get near it, it gets attracted closer to it until it is within range, where the plants can strike and start overgrowing them, as well as giving them like MRSA and other diseases. And then once they succumb to the diseases, it grows over them and just starts absorbing them. The true nature of the item is actually that it has this relieving effect for any creature that is very injured or is self-destructive. It attracts them to it and slowly grows this layer of like grass and hollybush over it until the creature is no longer among the living. And the ones who get absorbed feel very peaceful during this, apparently. The Foundation worries that people knowing about it might cause them to seek it out if they already have self-destructive tendencies, so it is recognized as a cognito. SCP-47 microbial mutagen is this iron-rusted cylinder that when exposed to open air begins to evaporate. Any bacteria near it start gaining super resistances, like to the full spectrum of antibiotics, as well as increased transmissibility, and they become much worse. Bacteria that would cause like skin acne become much, much worse. The Streptococcus virus creates, instead of a sore throat, large papules in the back of the throat, and if it bursts open, the bacteria gets in and causes sepsis in the blood. The Foundation is worried about what it would turn C. difficile into, as they should. That is a bacteria that does not need a boost. SCP-48 is the cursed SCP number. Any anomalous item that gets cataloged to that number has historically been at risk of being lost or damaged or just out of control, and anybody assigned to work on an item categorized to SCP-48 has been much more likely to die in the course of action. One researcher tried to say, it's all just superstition, you're all being nonsensical about this, and then he got proven wrong. So, SCP-48 is the disgraced and unused and cursed SCP number. SCP-49, the Plague Doctor. It is a creature dressed up in the Plague Doctor garb. He's got the full mask and everything. The cloak he wears might be his skin. He also seeks out the corruption, though he never really states what the corruption is. It's definitely not the bubonic plague, but he's never really completely clear about what it is. Anytime the Foundation tries to ask him, he's just like, why won't you let me do my good work? I'm trying to cure the corruption out of all of you. The way he does that is by mutilating creatures and turning them into sort of this sprawled creature that has been structurally rearranged and messed with completely. But he says it gets rid of a lot of the corruption, so I guess he's doing good work. And finally, SCP-50. It is a monkey statue that transfers ownership of itself to whoever it deems the cleverest. Whoever owns it will find that their workplace or their home has been cleaned up nice and tidy, but also that there are pranks scattered about throughout their house that the SCP is trying to pull on them. If you try and steal it, it will beat you, tattoo a warning on your face, and then go back to what it claims is its rightful owner. The SCP Foundation apparently had a huge prank war where it kept on transferring ownership of itself to different people. It was owned by a virus for a while until the SCP Foundation took a psychic theoretical cat and uploaded it to the computer. Yeah, the SCP Foundation gets a little weird.